How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I just moved in last Saturday to Ann Arbor, so just getting situated and everything. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about your piece. Oh my gourd for oboe and bassoon. How did you get to that title?
Um I went through a couple of titles actually, and I knew I wanted something that wasn't like particularly serious. Um, I didn't want something too profound, but I think the first title that I kind of tried and kept in mind while writing it was it was like when Earth crashes into Uranus, and that was like I just saw it on like a Snapchat like news feed thing, and I was like, oh, that's kind of catchy. Like, and then afterwards, I think then I was like, this doesn't really sound like that. I'm gonna try something else, and then I changed it to like when the light's too bright, so you have to squint, which it like I also was a little attached to that, but I felt like it was too wordy. And then I kind of just dawned on, oh my gourd, because there's some part of my mind where like uh the sound, like the timbre of the oboe and bassoon, they just it felt very Gordy to me. I I don't know how there's actually like in China there's an instrument called the hulu, which is made from a gourd, and like both the oboe and bassoon for some reason with like the double reeds, like it just reminded me of that like very specific sound. It is different, but that's what it reminded me of. And oh my gourd, it kind of play on a lot of things, like it's like it's like oh my god, but the god is gourd. And then and the piece, like the ending, like the G is capitalized, and I was like, oh yeah, that's great, like I should end on a G. And that's kind of the whole like gimmick of the piece, is like you think it's like F sharp, F sharp, F sharp all the way through, and then at the end it's like, oh, you got pranked. It's oh my god, you got pranked. It was actually just the leading tone the entire time, so I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I think that when I first heard it, that wasn't the title of it because I heard the premiere of it back because you wrote it for the Imprint
Yeah.
series at U of M. So that's when I first heard it, and I believe it was under a different title at that time.
I Well, the file was still under a different title. I think it did premiere as Oh My Gourd though, because that was also like a conversation I was having with Bryce and Jonathan, who are the talented, incredible performers that premiered that. It was like with that imprint concert, it was the first time like I really felt like composition was like super collaborative, because I was like working through it with them. So, and as I had a little bit of experience with oboe, but I was by no means an expert. So getting that, like, writing something and they're like, oh, maybe change this, maybe do this, like that was, super helpful. And then I also like, I also like pitched a few titles to them, and was trying to gauge how they felt about them. And I think we were all pretty stoked about Oh My Gourd.
Do you want to talk a little about what that Imprint concert was and what Imprint is at U of M for our listeners and viewers who may not be associated with U of
Oh,
M?
sure. Yeah. So during last year, a lot of I think it was the mastermind behind the operation was mostly like Griffin Candy, who did a lot of the organization. But there was a board of a few of the composition students, and we organized, I think, 3 or 4 different concerts throughout the year for the composition students. And obviously that posed a bit of a challenge, because everyone had to be socially distanced. COVID was going on the entire time last year, so it was a lot of everyone was innovating in their own ways in order to overcome the challenges that COVID posed, which was it was honestly so nice to see, like to hear like the premieres, even though it was on YouTube. It did like you still got some of that like premiere feeling because it was live. And often we would have like viewing parties, so it's like the so and so's piece would start playing, and everyone would just be start raving in the chat. And it felt it was almost kind of like Twitch, like yeah. It was, so I think through Imprint, I mean, like it really kept us collaborative. And the Imprint concert that I ended up participating in, which was at the last one, I think that was a collaboration with the chamber music um, at UMich with, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name, the violist.
Matt Albert?
Yeah, Matt Albert.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Matt Albert. Super like nicest guy like I've ever met. Like, and super helpful during rehearsals too. And through that, like it it was just so great to like be able to work with people again in person. Like, they were all small chamber ensembles, but to be afforded that kind of opportunity in our kind of current paradigm is definitely incredible. And that's, I was like, I have to take advantage of this situation. So that's how it came to be. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
it was
that,
a fantastic concert. Actually, it's where Maya and I first met and performed together. We premiered a piece for that same concert, so I completely agree. And sorry, Ava, you were saying.
I think that this piece though is a great first piece to play coming back to playing with people, because there's so much collaboration between the oboist and the bassoon. You're sneaking in and out of each other's, playing the same pitch, and so you really have to be in sync with them to make sure that these octaves on the F sharp are perfectly there, so that you can't hear if someone enters and you can't hear if someone leaves.
Yeah, that was definitely a pretty challenging part, especially with intonation and all of that, because I was pretty active during the rehearsal project with Bryce and Jonathan, and it was working through a lot of that stuff. And there were a few parts where it was a little dicey, and I really had to kind of there's some things that I still have yet to kind of develop the chops for notating down, and especially what I want specifically. So there are definitely some nuances that might it's hit or miss, and it's there's a lot of unique challenges posed by that. And in fact, originally when I got assigned that ensemble, and I was like, oboe and bassoon, this has anyone written anything for oboe and bassoon duo? It was the first time I've heard of that combination. So I did a fair bit of listening around, and I was actually stumped for a little while, because I couldn't imagine just writing for two separate voices, and it felt like I was it felt kind of restrictive. And at that time I suddenly everyone has their kind of Ligeti phase, and I was going through that. I was listening to a lot of Ligeti, and I guess I was partially inspired because in order for him, on a lot of his pieces, in order to kind of bolster creativity, he gives himself even more restrictions, which was something that I was maybe I should try doing that. So my restriction was having that F sharp be constant throughout the entire piece, and I felt like that really gave me kind of a starting block to build off of, and have all of these different melodies kind of noodling between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it worked out very, very well. I love the combination of oboe and bassoon. I agree. I had not heard that duo beforehand. This was the first piece I'd actually heard for that, and I think it does work very well. The timbres of the two double reed instruments, I think, blend together, but they can be different enough that one does stand on top of the other with a melodic line. So I think it works out very nicely.
Did you find any specific duos or oboe, bassoon, piano trio that you listened to while creating your ideas for this?
I listened to, I forgot the name of it, but I think Jeffrey Lyman and goodness, the oboe professor. Gosh, that's
King? Yeah.
yeah. They performed together, and that was one of the
Mm.
first videos that I saw, and I like, I think a lot of the music written for oboe and bassoon, like trio or duo, like a lot of it was more, like tonal and kind of within like an older era, but like the duo that they played was like it was kind of it had a lot of funk in there, had some dissonances and stuff, and I definitely listened to that, and I was like, like there is like, despite there only being two voices, there is a lot of like room for there to be uh a lot of like harmonic exploration, melodic lines and stuff like that. The other thing was actually Bryce recommended this like jazzy like bassoon and oboe duet to me. I don't think I remember what it was, but it was, to me, that was like crazy because um coming, like I was still, again, like wasn't super experienced with those instruments, so I always had this kind of preconception that the oboes and bassoons were like kind of clumsy instruments. Sorry, no, sorry, I don't mean anything bad by it, but like, listening more and more really like, like you guys can do anything, like it's so I felt a lot more comfortable like pushing technique wise, what they could do, the range, and and I experienced, like I dipped my toes into some like extended techniques and stuff like that too. That was it was kind of an adventure for all of us.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you had a fun time exploring and figuring out the world of double reeds. Is there anything else that you would like the listeners to be thinking of while they hear this piece performed?
Yeah, I guess I think like if you listen to the piece knowing that there's kind of a drone being held, the F sharp throughout the piece, I think it definitely, having that in mind, will alter your listening experience. And one thing I really did try to kind of play with because of that, because there was that constant, was like how the timbres of the instruments changed with dynamics, because that was something I was also kind of playing around with. And the first kind of third or half was just a crescendo, the second was kind of a decrescendo, and the I think that, I don't know, the F sharp, it was the same F sharp, but it sounded so different to me, and that was something that I found really enriching out of that piece. Not to toot my own horn, but I mean, but I guess I am trying to plug my piece here, but that's something I definitely want people to listen to. Just like it's really a collaborative thing. It's a conversation between the bassoon and oboe, and no, not like neither is necessarily more important than the other, and both kind of serve a greater purpose of keeping that F sharp going until, of course, the surprise at the end.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go back and listen to it before it goes live, knowing like the drone, because I haven't looked at the score at all. I remember you emailed it to me, and I just said off to Ava and Maya, so I'm definitely going to go back and listen to it. I'm very, very curious to listen to it with a different set of ears.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, this was a great piece to play, and now having or what the composer was thinking behind it, it does change some of my perspective of it, and I definitely will also go back and listen. So thank you, Jason, and thank you, Drew, and thank you to all of our listeners. I hope that you guys enjoy listening to Oh My Gourd with the knowledge that Jason has just given us. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure.